JJ the CPA here. Hope you're doing well. Hey, thanks for tuning in. Got a video for those wonderful self-employed individuals out there, which is going to include independent contractors, sole proprietors, single member LLCs that file a Schedule C on their individual return. And basically, if you file a Form Schedule C, okay, on your individual return, you're falling into this video. And when we're coming to the PPP forgiveness application, the Paycheck Protection Program forgiveness application, you really do have a much easier calculation, which is good. You have a lot less numbers to come up with. And the first is just because of the obvious. You're not paying any employees. Now, if you are paying employees, you're paying W-2 employees to employees, okay? And you are filing a Schedule C, you do need to check out all the rest of my videos and you will need to fill out everything related to employees. So that's a side note. But what I am indicating in this video is for those that do not pay employees and file a Schedule C, this video applies to you. And so you can go to my website to get the Paycheck Protection Program forgiveness application at jjthecpahelp.com. No booby traps. You don't enter in an email address and I try and sell you something later. You can just get it. And I've got SBA guidelines in there. I have a special page just for you, which is self-employed PPP forgiveness with additional info. I've got lists of the expenses that are going to be able to be included and not included. So if you have questions about, well, does this expense count? Does that expense count? You need to go to jjthecpahelp.com, look at that page because I've got schedules for you. I've got a calculation that you can use. I've got a list for you. I have the specific SBA guidelines just for you. So just to help you, because we get a lot of questions in the comments and it's hard to keep up with them, but I'm wanting to let you know if you're needing more information, you have a question, I bet I covered it on a video and or a schedule or some kind of documentation. So sorry to take a little time up front, but I really want you to know, because I know that the self-employed, the sole proprietors, the Schedule C filers, they're getting overlooked. Okay, and I know you have the questions, and I know it might be easier to put it in the comments, but I'm trying to be honest with you. I don't really feel like I'm going to be able to get to all of your questions. So dig a little, go to my website, check that out, because I promise you, I can't imagine that you're going to have a question that I haven't already covered. Now, I haven't done a video on this, which is going through the actual application for the self-employed. So with that being said, you can get the application. It'd probably be good if you paused and then went and got the application in front of you. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to work backwards, because that's actually how this form flows. It doesn't go page 1 through 11 like you'd think. It builds and builds and builds and builds. So we're going to start at the end. So if you go to page 11, pretty obvious, nothing to fill out there for you. On page 10, you'll take a look at that. And in essence, what applies to you is the non-payroll section of page 10. The payroll section and the FTE don't apply to you in terms of documentation. That's what page 10 is about. It is, in essence, walking you through what it is for the non-payroll documentation. So what's the non-payroll? It's the rent, the utilities, the interest, okay? Now, if we go to page 9, great news. None of it applies to you because it's for those that pay employees. Now, what I would recommend is in table 1, putting a line through it, table 2, put a line through it. In step 1 through 4, I'd put an NA on the line, which means non-applicable. You don't have to, but what it does is the person that's going to be reviewing this, it's going to tell them, oh, this doesn't apply to them. It's going to be like, oh yeah, to avoid them coming back and saying, hey, you didn't fill out page 9. So anyways, that's what I had always done in the past on any kind of forms with the government, is that. On page 8, same thing, nothing applies to you. Boy, we're on a roll here, right? So I would put in C, D, and E, you'll see that on the page, where there's a line, put a NA. Okay, on page 7, boom. You don't have to fill anything out other than on each of the lines, put a NA, not applicable. Now, we're gonna get to page 6. Okay, so page 7 through the rest of it, there's nothing for you to fill out. You're putting a line or an NA, putting a line through it or an NA. Now, when we get to page 6, boy, there's a lot of line items on this. But here's the good news for you, and you don't have payroll that you're paying to employees, okay? 1099s are not employees, okay? If you're paying someone a 1099, not an employee, okay? W-2 only employee that you're paying. Therefore, check this out. You only are completing line 9 and line 10. What? So on line 1, okay, you're putting a 0 because you're not paying any employees. Line 2 is a 0 because you don't have any employees. Line 3, line 4, line 5, line 6, and line 7, and line 8. All zeros. Put a 0 in there, okay? And unfortunately, in the SBA guidelines, the SBA made it clear, which I have a copy of, that for self-employed individuals, sole proprietors, independent contractors, single member LLCs, all those that are filing a Schedule C on their individual returns, unfortunately, do not get to include anything related to your health insurance or your retirement plan. Seems really unfair, but that's how it works, unfortunately. So what you're putting in line 9 is simply the compensation to owners. So you're taking the line 31 from your Schedule C. That's the line 31 that you use to get your Paycheck Protection Program loan amount. Remember, you would take Schedule C from 2019, line 31, okay, that same line 31 that you used for those purposes of getting the Ppp. You're going to take that same line 31, you're going to divide it by 52 weeks, and then you're going to times it by 8 weeks. Okay, so you're basically, they're saying, you know, what was your net for 2019? You're going to divide it by 52 weeks, and then you're going to multiply it by 8 weeks, because that's the amount of time for the PPP, of course, and that's what you're going to put on line 9. Okay, you don't need to do a separate form because there's not more than one owner with you filing a Schedule C. Then, as you'll see, the only reason you're filling out line 10 is that you're totaling lines 1 through 9, or 1, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9. But your line 9 is going to be the same as line 10. Boom, you're done with page 6. Line 11, 12, 13, on those you can put a NA because you don't have FTEs. The other ones you want to put a 0, in my opinion, probably doesn't matter, but you should put something, whatever you feel your opinion is, but put something. Now, we're going to go up to page 5. You'll see easily there are no numbers to fill out there, so good news. You're going to go to page 4, and you'll want to read through that, and if you are able to make these representation and certifications, then you're going to initial them all. You're going to sign and date this, print your name on it. Now we're up to page 3. What? We're already to page 3. So on page 3, excuse me, you are putting, enter the amount on line 1, PPP Schedule A, line 10. Okay? So all that is for you is that amount of line 31 divided by 52 times 8, remember? So what you put on line 9 just carried to line 10. So you're just taking that same line 10 from page 6. And that's what's carrying up to line 1 of page 3, okay? So what you filled out on page 6 is what's called PPP Schedule A. That flows up to now where we're at, which is page 3, and you're going to put that on line 1. Yes, you do need to have the PPP Schedule A even though you in essence only have one amount on there and then it's included in that total. Now, line 2, line 3, and line 4 on page 3, that's the mortgage interest payments, your rent or lease payments, your utility payments, okay? So your mortgage interest payments would be any loans that you have that you're using for business. Rent or lease payments, anything that you're renting or leasing for business purposes. Utility payments. What the SBA came out and indicated is that you will not be able to include any kind of interest or utilities for your home, even if you're working in your home, even if you have an official home office, even if you qualify for a home office under IRS rules. You're not able to include any interest on your home or any utilities on your home or any other expenses otherwise on your home. It would only be if you're paying it directly and separately outside of your home. So with that, if you would go to jjthecpahelp.com, I've got a list for you on the PPP Forgiveness for Self-Employed page. Again, no booby traps. You don't have to give me your email. It's just there for free. And it's based on the SBA guidelines that came out on April 14th, which I have a copy in there for you. But basically on line 2, line 3, line 4, you're going to put what you have for that. And then when you go to line 5, total salary and wage, you're going to put a 0, doesn't apply to you. Then on line 6, add the amounts on line 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then subtract line 5. Well, guess what? You don't have a number on line 5 other than a 0. So when you're now on line 6 of page 3, you're going to add up 1, 2, 3, and 4. You're going to subtract a 0 on line 5, and so now you have a total for line 6. Good news, line 7, it's a 0 for you because that's related if you have employees. And then when you now get down to potential forgiveness amounts, line 8, okay, you're taking line 6 divided by 7. Well, guess what? Your 7 is a 0, so your line 6 is going to be the same amount that you would put on line 8 for self-employed. Then on line 9, the PPP loan amount. So you got to go back and make sure you're putting in the amount that you actually got a loan for, right? When you did the PPP application, you got an amount. So that's what that's asking for there on line 9, okay? Then on line 10, this might be the only tricky one, just because when you first read it, you're like, what? Is this, did they write it right? Did they write it correctly? So make sure you're doing it right on your calculator, and I'm just saying that for myself too. So on line 10, page 3, you're taking your payroll costs that are on line 1 of the same page, right? So you're going to line 1 right up above, and you're going to divide it by 0.75, okay? So you're going to take that amount on line 1 and on your calculator. I don't mean to be too simplistic here, but sometimes you're like, wait, it's been a while since I've taken a math class, but it is divided, not times. It's divided, I promise you. You need it to be you want to divide it, because if you times it, you just locked yourself a huge amount off of your forgiveness. You have to divide it, okay? So you're going to take the amount on line 1, and on your calculator, you're going to hit that number on line 1 divided by 0.75, and it's going to give you a figure, okay? So just if your amount on line 1 was 4,500 and I divide it by 0.75, that's an amount of 6,000 that would go on line 10. Now, I just gave you an example. On line 1, you're going to have your actual number of your payroll costs. You're going to divide that by 0.75, and as you can see, the reason I did the math for you is that line 1 divided by 0.75 gives you an amount higher than what's on line 1. So yes, you want to divide it. I've had a number of questions. Are you sure we're supposed to divide it? So sorry to harp on it. I just want to make sure that you know you divide it. Then line 11, you're getting ready to be done. The forgiveness amount, you're going to enter the smallest of lines 8, 9, and 10. So you're just going to look at 8, 9, and 10. Whatever's the smallest amount you put on line 11, that's your forgiveness amount. Okay? So pretty easy for those that are self-employed. And then, of course, on page 3, you'll see that you need to enter in your name, your SBA PPP loan number, which you would have gotten from the lender, your lender PPP loan number. You're going to get it from the lender. Your loan amount, the disbursement date, your lender needs to tell you that. Typically, it's going to be the day that you got it, but you want to double check. It says employees at the time of loan application, 0. You don't have any employees. You're not an employee. Employees at the time of forgiveness application, 0. If you got an EIDL advance, regardless of when you got it, that's the advance, not a loan above the advance. You're going to put that amount and your EIDL application number. Payroll frequency, you're going to check the box other, and you're going to put Schedule C, self-employed. The covered period, okay, is going to be the date of disbursement plus 56 days. The date of disbursement plus 56 days, okay? Alternative payroll period, you're going to put an NA. Doesn't apply to you, okay? NA. And then if the borrower received PPP funds in excess of $2 million, check here. You wouldn't have. As a self-employed, you didn't get more than $2 million. Be nice, right? So you're going to make sure everything's complete there on page 3. On page 4, you would have made your representation, signed, date, printed. Boom, you're done. That's what you would need to complete. And then you would hand that in to your lender. They have 60 days to make a consideration. If they agree to it, remember, you're going to need to look to page 10 on the documents that you're going to need to provide. What documents? It's basically to substantiate what it is that you paid in utilities and interest and rent and lease payments. So you're just going to have to look at page 10 for those details. Go to my website, jjthecpahelp.com, for lists. So what is that? Canceled checks. It's your bank statement. It's the invoice from, if you're paying rent to a landlord, well, it's going to be the lease. It's going to be a receipt, and to show that you also paid it. You can't just say, here's what I had to pay. You have to also show you paid it. So you need the invoice and show that you paid it. If you paid it on a credit card, then you need to give your credit card statement to show that it was paid. Here's the thing to know. Whatever you have related to it, you need to have that documentation. Even if you're like, well, it's only on a screen. Well, screenshot it and print it. Well, I didn't get a copy of it. Well, you're going to have to call them and get it. Well, I normally don't get a receipt. Well, you're going to have to call them and they're going to have to email you something. You can't come up with a reason that you don't have documentation. You're going to have to find a way to have documentation, okay? And that's listed on page 10 for you, as I already discussed. And so your documentation, along with this completed, you're ready to rock. So hopefully that helps. By golly, if you made it to here and you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. I feel like I've given you a ton of information. I walked you through a very stressful application. I would really appreciate it if you just do me that favor, even if you've got to log in to your Gmail account to do it, that you would hit subscribe. All right, hey, I really appreciate you tuning in. And then don't you ever forget, you've never met a CPA quite like me. All right, hey, thanks for tuning in, and be sure to go to my website, jjthecpahelp.com, on the self-employed forgiveness page for more information, more videos, schedules, lists, the SBA guidelines that apply specifically to you. I put everything in there, so if you have a question and you haven't gone there, you need to. And I'll know this, because if you have a question in your comments here, and I know that I already did a video or I already have a schedule, no offense, I'm not going to answer it, okay? I might give you a thumbs up, and I appreciate you leaving a comment, but I'm not going to answer questions that I know I already put in a video that I know is on my website. And the only reason I'm saying that is you need to take this into your own hands and get it done. I understand it's a little nerve-wracking. You want to make sure you do it right. It's overwhelming. And that's just everybody. That's everybody. It's not just you as a self-employed. But I know you don't have a CEO and a CFO. You don't have a staff, probably, right? So instead of, well, here's my question, and here's my question, and here's my question, watch this video again, go to my website. Just giving you encouragement that we get so many comments. I don't think I'm going to be able to answer questions. So I'm just saying, if I'm going to be buzzing through the comments and I'm going to be looking to see if there's questions that I can answer, I'm only going to answer the ones that somehow I didn't cover in my website or my video. So anyways, hit subscribe. Appreciate you. Have a great day.